Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. You are here because obviously you're interested in learning about autoimmune disease, the impact it has, and the why behind it, and most importantly, what you can do to get your system back under control. Because believe it or not, there are things you can do, and I hope you leave this webinar feeling empowered to get to the root of the problem, start to heal your body from the inside out, and prevent future problems. So my name is Casey Schloss, and I graduated from the University of Missouri, Kansas City with my doctorate degree in pharmacy in 2010, and I went on to manage a busy community pharmacy in my hometown where we dispensed around 1,500 to 2,000 prescriptions a week in a town of about 10,000 people. And for as long as I can remember, I've been intrigued by how the human body works and why people get sick. So I developed and implemented our independent clinical program. Then I went on to become a clinical pharmacist for a larger pharmacy chain, became the clinical point person, and led the clinical programs for 34 stores in Missouri and Illinois. In total, I spent 13 years in community pharmacy. Then in 2014, something changed. Something really started to change inside. And it was really prompted by the realization that my pharmacy patients weren't getting any better. You know, sure, some of them may have benefited from the contemporary medicine, but as a whole, they seem to just be getting worse and worse. And it led me to question why. And really, what does it mean to be healthy, to treat from more of a holistic approach, and even what does it mean to prevent disease? So you can say I shifted, I guess, to more of a functional pharmacy approach, which is more of a healing-oriented approach that takes into account the whole person, including all aspects of lifestyle. You know, we're taught in pharmacy school how to identify potential side effects of medications, to make recommendations based on patient symptoms, and to manage or treat conditions, but not prevent them. But I started to think, what if there's more? What if I could teach patients or clients how lifestyle and nutrition could stop, if not reverse, some chronic diseases? You know, more of an approach based on treating underlying causes rather than just symptoms. So basically, it's like treating the fire and not the smoke, if you will. And I think a big part of this is because of my own health history from childhood, and I'm going to share more with you about that later. And here you'll see a picture of my family. That's my husband, Chris, our daughter, Kim, who is 3, and our son, Will, who is 2. So I want to start by addressing, why are we talking about autoimmune disease? So if you or a loved one battles this, you know how difficult it can be. Researchers have identified 80 to 100 different autoimmune diseases and suspect at least 40 additional diseases having an autoimmune basis. And these are chronic and they can be life-threatening. You know, autoimmune disease is one of the top 10 leading causes of death in female children and women in all age groups up to 64 years of age. The NIH estimates that 23.5 million Americans suffer from autoimmune disease and that the prevalence is rising. The AARDA estimates twice that number. So they say 50 million Americans. That is so many people. And why the difference? Why the 23.5 and 50 million? Why the difference there? Well, the NIH numbers only include 24 of the autoimmune diseases for which we have good epidemiology studies available. And as you can imagine, the healthcare costs that are associated with this are just astounding. So according to the NIH, $100 billion is spent in the US on autoimmune disease annually. And let's compare that to cancer, which has an annual direct healthcare cost of $57 billion. So obviously, this is a very, very big problem today. And the list of autoimmune diseases is pretty daunting. This is just a small list here of the most commonly known ones, like celiac disease, multiple sclerosis or MS, type 1 diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, which consists of colitis and Crohn's, thyroid disease such as Graves' and Hashimoto's, psoriasis, and rheumatoid arthritis or RA. What's more, some experts regard autoimmunity to be more of like a spectrum disorder. And what we mean by that is that the fully diagnosed identifiable disease state just being one arbitrary point on that spectrum. Most of us probably fall somewhere on the spectrum and have some degree of autoimmune dysfunction, some less, some more so. So we should really all be paying attention whether we have a diagnosis or not, because autoimmune dysfunction is likely happening well in advance of any noticeable symptoms. So I want to talk, before we can really talk about what goes wrong with autoimmune disease, we first need to take a look at how the immune system works. Let me go back a slide here. So we need to take a look at how the immune system works. And I know this is a really busy slide. It is not important that you fully understand it or even partially understand it, but know that one that the job of the immune system is to defend against foreign invaders. So it's like having your own personal built-in security system. And the only job of this built-in security system is to keep you safe. So the security system consists of all kinds of specialized immune cells like T cells, B cells, macrophages, all of which are on alert for something that doesn't belong in your body or in your bloodstream. And when a threat is perceived, instructions are really simple. Take it out. So when the system is working well, it does keep you safe, or at least safe from illnesses caused by unfriendly microbes. So what causes autoimmunity then? Autoimmunity occurs when your immune system gets confused and your own tissues get caught in this friendly crossfire. So when your immune system attacks the myelin sheath that covers your nerves, for instance, it's called multiple sclerosis or MS. When it attacks the thyroid, it's Hashimoto's thyroiditis. When it attacks the glands that produce tears and saliva, it's Sjogren's syndrome. When it attacks cells and tissues all throughout the body, affecting anything from the joints all the way to the heart, it might be lupus. So autoimmune conditions are connected by one central biochemical process, and that's a runaway immune response, also known as systemic inflammation. You're going to hear a lot about that tonight. And this is that one central process that then leads to oxidative stress, and that results in your body attacking its own tissues. So that's how autoimmune diseases often work. Something triggers inflammation, but then the oxidative stress that goes hand in hand with inflammation, it really increases faster than what your internal antioxidant army can keep up with. So what I want to talk about now is something that is really, really fascinating. And this is where it gets really important. So the emerging research on autoimmune, and likely the future of research on autoimmune, is all centered around gut health. And I want to talk a little bit about gut health and its role in autoimmune disease, because here is where you and we have a lot of control. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Many factors contribute to the development of autoimmune diseases. You know, shown here are genetics, immune cells, like we talked about, in the gut microbiome, and these have arrows pointing toward immune diseases, although each factor can be influenced by the others. So this emerging research supports that the gut bacteria influence various immune cells in autoimmune diseases. So what is this microbiome in our bodies that we all have? The human body is colonized by a vast number of microbes, and they're collectively named the microbiota. So recent studies suggest that there are at least as many microbial cells as human cells in our bodies. And in terms of genes, microbial genes outnumber human genes by a ratio of 100 to 1. And I know when I heard that, I totally could not believe it. It is becoming increasingly clear that our overall health and our well-being is profoundly linked to this massive population of bacteria that reside in our gut. And this is all going to make sense in a little bit. But these microorganisms that colonize our bodies and their genetic material, the microbiome, are essential for life. They have co-evolved with us, and they live in an innate relationship with us that's absolutely vital to normal health. So the biggest populations of microbes reside in our gut, where they aid in digestion, they prevent infection by pathogens, they produce certain vitamins, educate our immune system on what to fight. Although it's well recognized that the gut microbiota contributes to normal immunity, scientists are really still unraveling the ways in which things can go wrong and lead to disease. But autoimmune disease in particular, one of the fastest growing causes of disability and death in the US, has been strongly connected to the health of the human microbiota. In fact, get this. This is so fascinating. There was a study done at Yale University recently, and researchers discovered that the gut bacteria could spontaneously translocate. So I'm talking about how this gut bacteria that is right down in your digestive tract can move from the gut to the liver, to the spleen, to the lymph nodes. And once it's in these different tissues, the bacteria then stimulates the production of autoantibodies and causes inflammation that we've been talking about. And these are hallmarks of autoimmune response. So basically, after telling you all of this, what you need to know is that our gut health matters. It matters so much, and by improving it, we can improve our overall health, including those with autoimmune disease. So now I want to go back to that genetics part really quick, because it is so important for us to realize that our DNA is not our destiny. In fact, it's like less than 1% of the equation. Lifestyle is more and more of a critical factor. So the microbe is it's likely that this microbe is really what's leading to our destiny right now. So for the remainder of tonight, what I'm going to talk about in this webinar is mostly focusing on nutrition to improve this gut health, to decrease that inflammation and decrease that oxidative stress burden on our bodies. So let's talk really briefly from my perspective as a pharmacist about the problem with current treatment. And I think that we can all agree with the statistics that we looked at earlier, there is clearly a problem with current treatment when it comes to autoimmune disease. And it goes back to what I said about treating the fire and not the smoke. Like, if you want to cool off inflammation in the body, you've got to find the source. Healthcare professionals are trained to shut off inflammation with anti-inflammatory medications, like think about Advil, Motrin, even steroids, and even increasingly more powerful medications, things that suppress the immune system, and they have serious side effects. But what we're not trained to do is to find and treat underlying causes of inflammation and chronic disease. So gut health, hidden allergens, infections, environmental toxins, an inflammatory diet, stress, these are the real causes of these inflammatory conditions. And these are often addressed by powerful immune suppressing meds and not by addressing the cause. So what I'm talking about is more of a functional medicine approach, and that teaches us to treat the cause, not just the symptoms, and to ask the questions, why are you sick? Not only what disease do you have? So now I want to clarify, I am not anti-medicine. I'm not. But unfortunately, many of the conventional treatments available can really make you feel worse. Anti-inflammatory drugs like Advil, steroids, these immune suppressing drugs like methotrexate, and even these new TNF alpha blockers, if you're familiar with them, like Enbrel and Remicade, they can lead to intestinal bleeding. They can lead to kidney failure, depression, psychosis, osteoporosis, muscle loss, diabetes, not to mention overwhelming infection and even cancer. So I'm not saying that to scare you, but this is real. We need to talk about this stuff. When used selectively, these drugs really can help people get their lives back, but they're not a long-term solution. They should not be used. They shouldn't be the end of treatment, but instead they should be a bridge to cool off that inflammation while we really dig in and treat the root cause of the disease. So it's like this quote from Dr. Mark Hyman from the Cleveland Clinic, and I love this. When he was discussing autoimmune diseases, he said, these are often addressed by powerful immune suppressing medications and not by addressing the cause. That's like taking a lot of aspirin while you're standing on a tack. The treatment is not more aspirin or a strong immune suppressant, but removing the tack. So that's what I'm talking about. So I'm excited tonight because there is another way to deal with autoimmune conditions, and I'm really pumped to introduce you to my friend Regina. Regina, I'm going to call you on here so that you can share your incredible story of healing with everyone who's on here tonight. So give me 1 second, guys, and I'm going to find Regina here. And Regina, we are so excited to hear from you. Okay, you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. So good evening, everyone. As Casey mentioned, my name is Regina Thompson. I am a wife, a mom, and currently work as an accounting financial advisor. I've personally had thyroid issues for over 18 years now. Almost 10 years ago, I had part of my thyroid removed. I was subsequently diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, Hashimoto. As a result of those, I was put on 23 different prescription medications, which caused some nasty side effects, which were weight gain, inflammation. I can remember days where simple, household cleaning took everything out of me. I did not have energy. I was in a lot of pain. It was at this point that my cousin introduced me to a product that really helped me. Or that really actually helped her autoimmune disorder. And after being skeptical at first, I figured, I feel so terrible at this point. What more did I really have to lose? Since starting Juice Plus and the Shard 10 program about a year and a half ago, my quality of life has been 180 and I feel fabulous. My quality of life, I've gone from barely being able to summon the energy to go to bed every day to be able to not only do my housework and daily errands, but also go and get out on the football field with my son and help them with team warm-ups. With the inflammation has improved so much that I rarely have the joint stiffness anymore. My thyroid levels are improved, and I'm down to only 3 of those medications daily. So I've gone from 23 down to only 3 now. It feels great to finally have my life back, have a true quality of life.
Well, I'm smiling ear to ear, Regina. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Did you guys hear that? From 23 medications down to 3, from not being able to get out of bed some days, or just feeling, really difficult to get out of bed and get going, to now being able to get out on the football field with her son and help with warm-ups. I absolutely love her story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yes, so we are so inspired by that. And I want to dive briefly, let me get my slides to go again here. I want to dive briefly into this functional approach and just touch on 4 key areas. And most of these, you guys, will not surprise you, but you would be surprised to see how much they can impact your health. Any real effective treatment plan has to include every aspect of life. The organ that's affected, like the place where you actually see and feel symptoms, is the sole focus in conventional medicine, but it's just the starting point for a functional approach to autoimmune disease. This functional approach goes way beyond simply managing symptoms with harsh pharmaceuticals. It actually offers a message of hope. And that's what we're about tonight. So the first is exercise, and regularly, because it's natural anti-inflammatory. Next, reduce stress by finding ways to relax every day. And I know when we lead busy lives, this isn't always easy, but try things like taking a hot bath or getting a massage, because stress worsens the immune response. Third, think toxins. They're everywhere, and we are exposed to them in all sorts of combinations. And at some point, the cumulative effect overwhelms the body's ability to fight back, and that weakens immunity even further. So we need to fight back with antioxidant-rich foods. So we need to be eating at least 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day. And I don't mean just sometimes or maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but every single day. And some experts say it's more like 9 to 13 servings. And if you're an athlete or you have a disease process, we need upwards of 16 to 18 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables every single day just to protect us. And then finally, number 4, we're back to cleaning up our gut, which I talked to you about already. But the lining of the intestines is, amazingly, it's not very thick. So if you think of it as this thin layer of cloth that protects the bloodstream from particles that don't belong, sometimes there's tears in that cloth, and the lining of the gut is said to leak, if you will. So this allows, that leak can allow bigger, less digested particles to get through and go into the bloodstream. The immune system looks at these molecules and it really calls out the troops. So then this cycle of inflammation, leaky gut, more inflammation just continues. And that right there is why healing the gut is so high on the list of priorities for any functional medicine approach to autoimmunity. And briefly, I want to touch on gluten. It's the culprit in celiac disease. You know, it's ubiquitous in our diet. It's inflammatory for many people. And I'm sure you know people, if not you yourself, who have an intolerance to gluten. And this can lead to a further decline in our gut health. So that leads me right into this program and these products that I'm so excited to share with you tonight. And I know Regina mentioned them in her story, but the Shred 10 program and the Juice Plus products are changing lives all over the world. This program covers every one of those areas that we discussed and more. You know, we live in such a polluted world that we absolutely cannot eat enough fruits and vegetables, and that's where Juice Plus comes in. And then the Shred 10 program really takes it to the next level, because Juice Plus is acting as that catalyst for change. But in this lifestyle program, we make important changes that really help the body detoxify on a daily basis. And this program fits in perfectly for anyone with autoimmune disease, and it helps really to get your body back into balance. You know, when you think about it, autoimmune disease can take years off your life, but sometimes even worse, or can take, it can take years off your life, but sometimes worse, it can take life off your years. And some people are living the majority of their life with an autoimmune disease that is greatly affecting their quality of life, like what Regina was telling us about. And I personally have an autoimmune disease, and I was really sick growing up. And that is why this topic is so near and dear to my heart, because I've been there. At 14, I was diagnosed with ITP, which is an autoimmune disorder, and that led me to having my spleen removed. And I went through so much, a ton of doctor visits, a lot of hospitalizations, treatments, and what I say is more medication than a whole family should ever have an entire lifetime. And after having my spleen removed, I battled for 16 more years due to a weakened immune system. I continued to get sick often. You know, if you think about it as a pharmacist, you're really exposed to sick people every single day. But I had a severe lack of energy that I was trying to fix with Red Bull and diet soda, and my body was just unhealthy. I would swell in my ankles and my feet, and I would bloat up after every meal. And I knew I didn't want to end up on lifelong medications like so many of my patients. And ultimately, I had to make a change. So my husband, who's also a doctor of pharmacy, he and I started juicing every day because all the research we did led us back to knowing we needed a healthy diet rich in fruits and vegetables, and we needed that every day. And we did that, the juicing thing, for about 6 months, but it just was not sustainable for us given the cost, the taste, and the time that it took. And that is when I found Juice Plus. And it made sense to us immediately because of the research. So we got started right away. So what is it exactly? You might be wondering. So it's a variety of 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries in capsule or chewable form. It's also a full spectrum plant-based omega and a vegan, low glycemic, gluten-free, dairy-free, plant-based protein blend that you can use to make shakes or smoothies. And some of the things that really stand out to me as a healthcare professional are it's made with vine-ripened produce. So produce that's actually at the peak of nutrition. It's also tested for purity. It's tested for nutrient content. It's bioavailable. So what does this mean? It means it actually gets into the bloodstream. This is very different than vitamins, which I've heard to be called basically expensive urine because they actually don't get into your bloodstream. But it's also the most thoroughly researched nutritional product in the world. And I'll get into that in just a bit. But even more so, it's affordable and it's convenient. So talk about feeding the good bacteria in our gut. This makes improving gut health achievable and simple. You know, we need to understand that inflammation all throughout our body has to do with the inflammation in our gut. And our bodies can heal when we heal the inflammation in our gut. So Juice Plus is actually a prebiotic. So it's feeding the good bacteria inside our gut. What we have in the complete shake is that it's complete. So it has starches and it has fiber that really feed our microbiota. And our bacteria feed on these resistant starches in the complete to help make everything work properly, like what I was talking about earlier. So it's really important that we combine all of these things together. And when we do, we have 45 different plants coursing through our bodies every single day. So the power of plants to reduce systemic inflammation is just so important. You know, today with Juice Plus, we have 4 clinical studies showing that we can change the factors of inflammation in the right direction when we take the Juice Plus products. And it's not just that. It's not just about inflammation. We have 38 studies today proving what it does in the human body. Another important area of research shows that Juice Plus supports key measures of immune system function. So that absolutely relates to autoimmune. Remember what we talked about earlier with our immune cells being out of balance? Well, Juice Plus is proven to bring those B cells and T cells back into balance after about 80 days. And remember that oxidative stress we talked about earlier too. Juice Plus is also proven to reduce oxidative stress in the body. And then there's one last area I want to touch on with the research on Juice Plus. Remember when I said that our genes aren't our destiny, they are not our destiny? Like I said, I'm not saying genetics aren't important, but what I'm saying is what's more important is nutrigenomics. And that means how can nutrition bring out the best from our DNA? So when they, in the research, in the clinical studies, when they looked at how Juice Plus affects our genes, they found it impacted over 1,500 different genes and actually downregulated inflammatory genes. This is insanely impressive. You know, our nutrition and our lifestyle can actually turn off and on our genes, and our research proves that. So this research is gold standard research. It's done at prestigious institutions and it's published in peer-reviewed medical journals. So back to my story. When we started Juice Plus, within the first 2 to 3 weeks of starting, I had natural energy. It was amazing. I no longer needed the diet soda or energy drinks to get through my long days at work as a pharmacist. Then came improved gut health. So my belly stopped bloating after meals. My bowel movements became regular after a lifetime of constipation. And then in the next 3 to 6 months came improved allergies, sinuses, sugary cravings were greatly reduced. And for the first time in my life, my immune system can actually fight for itself. I was able to completely get off of 2 prescription and 2 over-the-counter medications that I've been taking every day because I've been battling sinus congestion, drainage, frequent upper respiratory infections, but the symptoms were gone. And now I actually crave healthier foods. So I don't eat perfectly. If you know me, you know that. But the food I eat now is totally different than what it was before. And as far as my immune system goes, since starting Juice Plus, this is the healthiest 5 years that I've had in my entire life. And now I'm 36. So I no longer get sick like I used to, and my immune system is stronger than ever. I don't feel like I'm compromised just because I don't have a spleen or because I have an autoimmune disorder. Anytime I feel like I'm coming down with something, I just take extra capsules because we know that more antioxidants only helps. So one other thing I want to touch on briefly is how I use Juice Plus as my prenatal nutrition, my sole prenatal nutrition, because of the research proving, like I said earlier, that it gets into the bloodstream. We couldn't, as my husband and I, both pharmacists, couldn't find one prenatal vitamin with any research on it, actual research in the human body. And We had 2 super healthy, we're so grateful for very healthy, uneventful pregnancies, and our 2 kiddos now are very healthy as well. And this is something, like I said, we're absolutely grateful for, because coming from parents who battle with their health, you know, my kiddos, their dad, my husband, he as a child, he had recurrent ear infections and tubes in his ears twice, and then me having an autoimmune disorder, we know this is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to them, just really setting them up for a lifetime of success with their health. And today our whole family takes all the products every single day. We start with a complete shake or a smoothie. We open the capsules for our kids and pour them in, and they drink it. We snack on the chewables, the bars, and we do the shred program together every month as a family. And I love this program because it's sustainable, because it's healthy and it's family friendly. It's exactly what our bodies need, and the support and our groups and the ebooks and the resources, they all make it so easy for a busy mom like myself to plan and cook meals for my family and to keep us on track. So in closing, first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining us, whether you're on here live or you're catching the replay. And I want to ask that you share this message with anyone you know who is battling autoimmune disease, and get with the person who shared this with you to get your questions answered. My wish for you is that you take proactive action starting now for yourself and your family to get yourself in the direction of getting your system back under control. And remember that knowledge is power, but knowledge without action is useless. Have a great night, everyone.